a failed attempt by Russian forces to regain control of the border checkpoint between Sumy and Kursk regions. Soldiers from the Pentagon unit of the 225th Assault Regiment used kamikaze drones to strike Russian troops who attempted to break through on motorcycles and ATVs. Even with their maximum efforts and tens of thousands killed, the Russians and North Koreans are unable to dislodge Ukrainian units from the border regions of Kursk, Belgorod, and Sumy. SBU drones strike again in the Black Sea, both aerial and maritime, destroyed a Russian radar system and supply facilities on gas platforms, including the Neva radar used for air and sea monitoring. On May 16th, a strike hit Russian military Unit 12,676, 126th Coastal Defense Brigade. A building storing ammo was destroyed. Nearby container storage suggests it may have held foreign-supplied munitions. Given its proximity to the Angarsky and 126th Brigade ranges, it likely housed Iranian or North Korean ammo. Satellite images confirmed damage to the ammo storage in Perevalny, occupied Crimea. On May 16th, a strike hit Russian militia Unit 12,676, 126th Coastal Defense Brigade. A building storing ammo was destroyed. Nearby container storage suggests it may have held foreign-supplied munitions. Given its proximity to the Angarsky and 126th Brigade ranges, it likely housed Iranian or North Korean ammo. At dawn on May 14th, Ukraine's 77th Air Assault Brigade repelled a Russian assault involving motorcycles, light armor, and a tank. Ukrainian forces destroyed 2 vehicles, 3 bikes, and a tank covering the assault group. At first light on May 14th, the battlefield erupted as Ukrainian paratroopers stood their ground. The enemy, attempting a fast and aggressive push using motorcycles and light armor, met a wall of disciplined resistance. Precision fire from Ukrainian positions quickly turned the tide. Engines burned, twisted wreckage scattered across the terrain. What was meant to be a swift breakthrough turned into a retreat under fire. The 77th Air Assault Brigade, seasoned and battle-hardened, once again proved their resolve. Their defense not only blunted the assault, but sent a clear message. Ukrainian lines in this sector are unshakable. As smoke settled over the ruined machines, the defenders held firm, eyes forward. This was more than just a tactical victory. It was a reminder that even under pressure, Ukraine's frontline warriors remain sharp, coordinated, and unbreakable. Russians in pre-trial detention, not even having been convicted of a crime, say they are being tortured and forced to choose between sexual assault and signing a military contract. At the front, they were told they were animals and were wiped out in their first assault. In September 2024, the Russian State Duma adopted a new law allowing the Ministry of Defense to recruit from the 60,000-strong population of pre-trial detainees. As many as 40% were expected to sign up. This has expanded the pool from which the Russian military can recruit. Tens of thousands of convicts were recruited from 2022 onwards under the auspices of the Wagner Group and later, after Wagner was dismantled, directly by the Russian Ministry of Defense. However, perhaps predictably, detainees say they are being forced to sign up. A former pre-trial detainee named Vadim has recorded a video in which he describes how the prisoners were treated. He says they were immediately tortured and had their living conditions made unbearable before being presented with a dildo and an unsigned contract. After arriving at the detention center, they take us to some cell. A cell without windows, without anything at all. They just start beating us in this cell, beating us with everything they can, with their hands, with their feet. It is basically impossible to fight back. On the table itself, on the left side, there was a male dildo, an imitation reproductive organ, and on the right side, there was a sheet. Well, during the interview, as I later saw, it was like a sample contract. And they just started to beat us up again. They kicked us for a while, and then this masked Federal Penitentiary Service officer comes in again and says, "You have a choice." He says, "Either you will be literally fucked, or you have this option, a wonderful one. Take this piece of paper, sign it, and everything will be fine for you." Vadim did sign and was taken to an assembly point at Voronezh, where many prisoners, 20 or 30 busloads, were brought. Some guy comes in. I assume that it was some boss. He starts talking for sure, comes in, starts telling us what pieces of shit we are, that nobody gives a damn about us, that we are absolutely not people, no one will remember us, no matter what we do. He had an automatic rifle with him. He pulled the bolt and just started shooting at the air. And that was it. The prisoners were sent to a village in Luhansk in Ukraine for training and equipping. They searched everyone, took money, took bank cards, took phones, everything that could connect with the outside world in general, and threw us into these dugouts. Vadim says that he and his fellow prisoners were given uniforms that were the wrong size and pierced with old bullet holes. The recruits were given only 10 days training that consisted entirely of digging trenches and foxholes. They gave us sapper shovels and told us to dig. We dug trenches, we dug fortifications, we dug foxholes, and somehow no one even had a question. Well, some were afraid to even hint at why we weren't training there, shooting, or anything. And one of the commanders one day just said on his own, he says, "Guys," he says to you, "you need to learn to dig. And the deeper you dig, the longer you will live." The men were sent to the front line in Russia's Belgorod region, to some city or village bordering the Kharkiv region with Ukraine. So we arrived there. They said, "You have literally a few hours, and you are now going on a combat mission." It turned out to be a typical meat assault, in which the men were sent on a suicidal mission to storm concrete Ukrainian fortifications on the other side of a kilometer-wide field with no cover. Not surprisingly, most were killed. Everywhere around I saw burnt, scorched equipment. There were people lying there who were burnt to such an extent they looked as if they were infected. That's how it was. We set off, and I was going with that understanding, I can say. I even dreamed that something would fly in right now, so that I wouldn't suffer, so that I wouldn't go anywhere further, so that it would kill me here. Another guide met us and said that there was another point here. We had to move very quickly and stealthily. We would get there soon. There was a distance of about 3 kilometers. And so 50 of us set out, and 20 reached the final point. While we were walking, that was the second line. There on the left and right side, where the corpses were lying, where the wounded guys were. And so we met the 300s. Guys who were wounded. And they were lying there in the bushes. So we gave them some cigarettes to consume. Little things like that. They actually asked us to call an evacuation group when we got to the point, because they had been there for 3 days already, and no one was picking them up from there. We said okay. And we all headed off. And as a result, while we were walking, the Ukrainians started pounding the entire route right away, almost instantly. I didn't know what to do. So I can't go back, because I understand that my own people will kill me. I can't go left, because I don't know where to go. The only thing left to do is just go straight ahead. And I immediately read out the next task. One of the commanders, he says, "See, there's a field behind you. And the field there is huge. There, I don't know, 800 meters, a kilometer, a huge fucking thing." And he starts describing the task. So what do we need to do? There are concrete fortifications firing from the other side. There are Ukrainian servicemen, machine gunners sitting there. You, he says, need to go there. And he says something like, "You need to get there on all fours, because if you don't get there on all fours, you won't get a meter." The men objected, to which Vadim says the commander responded by telling them, "You are animals. I'll fuck you right now." He says it doesn't matter that you will die there, that if you don't, you will die here. Vadim says that he suspects it was probably for good reason that they didn't give out ammunition, because at that moment, if the guys had ammunition there, I think those bosses would have been shot in reality. The prisoners were divided into 2 groups of 10 men each. The first group was wiped out within little more than 100 meters of their starting point. The Ukrainians were shooting from tanks and from artillery, and drones were diving. That is, well, maybe they got over 100 meters, God willing, they probably went, and that's it, well, the guys lay down there. Vadim was in the second group of 10, which fared little better. We just approached the field, and like a massive buzzing of bees over our heads. And the last thing I remember is this wild, wild buzzing sound, like there were chainsaws. That's how I found out later it was a big drone. It was called Baba Yaga. US and EU will ramp up sanctions on Russia if Putin refuses peace talks in a spirit of goodwill, says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to CBS News. Bessent admits past sanctions were ineffective, blaming Biden's soft approach. Trump, he says, has made the stakes clear. After a 2-hour chat with Putin, Trump claims Russia and Ukraine will begin negotiations for a ceasefire and end to the war. But no real details or breakthroughs, just promises of massive trade and unlimited potential post-war. He informed Zelensky and European leaders, with the Pope reportedly interested in hosting talks. Just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be, because they know details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent. If it wasn't, I would say so now, rather than later. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over, and I agree. There is a tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. Likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary on trade in the process of rebuilding its country. Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. I have so informed President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, President Emmanuel Macron of France, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany, and President Alexander Stubb of Finland, during a call with me, immediately after the call with President Putin. The Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz confirmed that the EU will intensify sanctions on Russia, aligning with the US after Trump's call with Putin. Merz emphasized Europe's unified stance and commitment to supporting Ukraine toward a ceasefire. President Zelensky highlighted the necessity for the US to ensure Russia doesn't profit further from the war.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.